Hi everyone, welcome to my podcast, Diwan-e-Ghalib Meri Zubaani. The podcast is dedicated to Mirza Beg Asadullah Khan, lovingly known as Ghalib, the poet of the people, who even after 1.5 centuries since his birth, continues to mesmerize readers like me with the spontaneity, the mystery, the simplicity, and the complexity of his writings. It is said that in India, after Gita and Quran, Divan-e-Ghalib is probably the third most read book. And there are many educational institutes that have it as part of their curriculum. Otherwise, in the world of literature and poetry, of course, this book has its own unique place. Ghalib's writings make home in the hearts of both the literary elites and the common man equally. Something very unique to Ghalib. Diwan-e-Ghalib is a collection of about 200 plus ghazals, I think about 230, and some of them were added to the Diwan posthumously after Ghalib's death, as and when they were discovered. So yeah, it's a collection of about 230 plus ghazals. Ghalib wrote them in Rekhta. Rekhta was the then spoken Urdu language, and Ghalib wrote this Diwan under the takallus of Asad. And also Ghalib, as the story goes, Ghalib started writing under the takallus of Asad, only to realize that there was another poet who was writing under the same takallus. And Ghalib thought that that poet's work was inferior to what Ghalib writes, and Ghalib did not want any confusion about that poet's work and his work. And that's when he switched from Asad to Ghalib. Now, Asad literally means the lion. I like that pen name. I like it more than Ghalib. And then Ghalib literally means all-conquering, superior, most excellent. And if I remember correctly, Ghalib was a part of the title bestowed upon him by the emperor, and that's what kind of allowed him to use it as his takallus. But that's from my memory. Yeah. Now in Ghalib's times, let me correct that. In Ghalib's time, the ghazals usually focused on unrequited love and the pain and anguish that accompanied it. So usually the ghazals focused on the expression of this pain and anguish. And Ghalib did follow in the same vein. Most of his ghazals at the heart are very strongly embedded in unrequited love and the pain and anguish around it. But then Ghalib also wrote about mysticism. He wrote about philosophy. He wrote about mysteries of life. And with equal ardor, with equal detail of expression and thought. And hence, for a reader and a fan like me, that's a heady mix. You have love, you have pain, you have grief, you have self-control, you have apathy, you have empathy, mysticism, philosophy, mysteries of life. I mean, it's a well-rounded concoction. It's a well-rounded concoction, and it's a delight to lose yourself in it. It's an absolute delight to lose yourself in it, because it touches all your senses. It touches all your senses. Now, the list of things that make Ghalib unique, that make him a maestro of what he did, that set him apart in a class of his own from other poets who probably were writing in the same era or even before and after that. That's a long list. Sorry, had to take a quick sip of that tea. Yeah, so that list is long, but there are a few things that belong in that list and have heavily influenced me, impacted me, and kind of are the backbone, the motivation, the inspiration behind this podcast. And I wanted to use this introductory episode to share those with you, just so that you can get an insight into what is behind this podcast. So the first thing, it is said that great poets are masters of thought and diction, words. And I can not think of a better embodiment of that other than Ghalib. So, Ghalib brought to the table some thoughts that how do I want to put this? What I'm trying to say is what Ghalib expressed in his ghazals cannot be possible by words alone. Cannot be possible by words alone. You can have the best of words and you can have mastery of stringing words, but the depth, the intensity, the detail Ghalib brought to the table was not possible by words alone. There were some very intense, intuitive thoughts behind that. Thoughts that were firmly embedded in actual personal experiences. Ghalib was not telling someone else's story. Ghalib was not talking about things that were out there. Ghalib's writings clearly show that he brought to the table some thoughts that had to be personally experienced, emotions that had to be personally felt for him to put them to paper. And of course, he had both, and he used both his thoughts and words to weave these complexes, mazes, labyrinths, of words and thoughts. And as a reader, you went into them eagerly to figure them out, to decipher them, to decode them. And if nothing else, just get lost in them. Because like I said, it was a great experience. All your senses would be alive in that maze that Ghalib created. So that was one thing that really inspired this podcast, because as I begin to share my impressions of Ghalib's ghazals, we will come across these word complexes, thought complexes, and mazes and labyrinths. And as a listener, you will enjoy listening to someone else struggle as they decode and decipher them, like you did when you were reading the same ghazal. The second thing which really influenced and impacted me was that Ghalib, in his writings, captures this eternal optimism. When he's describing his wishes, when he's describing his desires, when he's talking about his vision, he had a very progressive, futuristic vision. The fact that his poetry and his writings are still, to this day, relatable. They come across as true and plausible, is testimony to the fact that when he wrote them 1.5 centuries back, for sure, the vision around them was very progressive and futuristic. And this becomes even more evident when you read things he has written around topics like politics or religion, society, community, society, what would we call that? Structure, right? His vision is very evident there, how futuristic he was. So yeah, on one hand, he was capturing this eternal optimism. And then on the other hand, you see him capture the pain, the grief that accompanies the disillusionment when these internally optimistic dreams, wishes, and visions are not fulfilled. So it's like he will first describe for you what could be, right? And that's the eternally optimistic part of it. And then he will describe to you what could be but didn't. And that is the depth of disillusionment and pain and grief and disappointment and almost a sense of ultimate loss that, he will capture that. So as a reader, you see him walk this fine line between eternal optimism and eternal abyss of loss, right? And again and again and again, sometimes in the same sher, sometimes in the same ghazal, sometimes, sometimes in the same story, he will make the pendulum swing from one extreme to the other. And as a reader, you swing with him. So you are eternally optimistic and you are wishing for all these things. And then he will make you swing all the way to this eternal gloom, this eternal feeling of dejection and disillusionment because you wished for all of this and none of it happened. So that is something which is very unique about Ghalib. He never got lopsided. He walked this fine line with such finesse again and again. And I think that caliber, that quality of Ghalib is again unmatched. It's unmatched. The third thing, so in my years of reading Ghalib, trying to understand Ghalib, I have come to realize that if I go through a ghazal or even a sher and I spend time with it, I translate it, I understand it, and I come to a stage where I feel, okay, I have grasped the essence of this. This is what it means. Now, if I get an opportunity to meet a friend or a fellow Ghalib fan who has gone through the same ghazal or who has gone through the same sher, and I ask them to share their impression, never will the impression be similar to mine. Never. And the difference could be subtle or it could be stark, but it will never be similar. And it always made me wonder, well, it's the same sher. Both of us translated it, both of us understood it. Shouldn't the impression be similar? Well, in case of Ghalib, no, never. Never. So that was something very unique. Again, forms the inspiration behind this podcast, wherein the podcast is a forum for Ghalib fans to come in, tune in, and listen to a different impression other than theirs of the same ghazal, where this impression is heavily influenced and colored by the personal experiences of the person behind it. Ghalib and the way I understand this quality is that Ghalib met his readers where they were. You didn't go to Ghalib. Ghalib came to you through his writings. He met you exactly where you were. Emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, linguistically, whatever your life experiences were, whatever your place was in the emotional realm or in the spiritual realm, Ghalib met you there. And isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing that he was almost like an architect who had this unspoken rule that when I create a house, whenever the sun shines on it, there should be no room, no corner left in dark. Every room, every corner should light up. It should light up. So the ghazals were like, this was his unspoken promise to his readers that if you read my ghazal, I will speak to you. I will meet you where you are. Anyone and everyone. No exceptions. So, yeah, I think that this is something very unique about Ghalib. And if you're a true fan of Ghalib, you will understand this unique quality where Ghalib created room, he created space, he left a door open for his readers to step in that space and create their own personal impression of his ghazal. The readers were allowed to discard what they could not relate to and embrace what they could relate to. and form a personal impression. And Ghalib assured that this personal impression will capture the essence of what he was writing. It will capture the essence of what he was writing. So, as a reader, as a fan, this is empowerment, almost, wherein I can go into his ghazal, I can understand it, I can personalize it, and embrace it as my own. That is heady, that is empowerment. And I think though there are a lot of stories and there are a lot of incidents which will probably paint a picture of Ghalib where he's very competitive, at times bordering on arrogance about his abilities, and rightly so. He was of a caliber unsurpassed by any. But I firmly believe that at the heart of it, Ghalib's objective, whenever he wrote, was to connect. He knew he might not be able to connect to everyone if they had, some kind of block, or they were not accepting, or they were not open to his works or writings. But if you openly, with an open heart and an open mind, read what he wrote, Ghalib wanted to connect. He wanted to connect to your heart, he wanted to connect to your mind, he wanted to connect to your soul, and he did, if you gave him an opportunity to do so. So, I genuinely believe that these are some unique qualities which make him not just another poet, not just another poet everybody talks about, not just another famous poet, not just another classic poet which you should know about, read about, because boy, they had some mastery over thought and diction. Ghalib comes with this unique personalization quality to his works, which just makes you own his poetry as yours, right? It just makes you feel as if it's your poetry. It's about you. It's about your experience. It's your life. It's your love at stake. He's talking about your love, or he's talking about your pain, your grief. And that is amazing. Now, he is a poet, a very famous one, but Ghalib is also a philosopher. And I personally cannot think of another single source than Ghalib who has taught me more about love and life. I cannot. And for that, I'm eternally indebted to him. Eternally indebted to him. The depth of emotion, the depth of understanding, the depth of the possibilities in love and life. Ghalib probably has taught me the most. And this podcast is my way of saying thank you to him. This podcast is my way of saying thank you to him. Now, the plan is that we will pick one ghazal at a time, and I will record a personal impression of that ghazal and share it with you. To maximize understanding and my ability for expression, I will record in English, Hindi, and Urdu as needed. So, because it is not easy to capture and articulate Ghalib's writings, even if they are your own personal impressions. So we need all the tools in the arsenal. This is all I had for now in terms of what I wanted to share with you guys, wherein you could get an insight into what is the inspiration, what is the motivation behind this podcast. The last thing that I do want to mention is that this is a new podcast, and all the viewers and subscribers who will come to this podcast during these nascent stages, right? You hold a very special place in my heart. I appreciate you clicking. Probably you are as big a fan as I am. You saw Ghalib in the title of the podcast, and that was enough for you to click and see what it is all about. So I really appreciate it. And I do hope that as we progress, you will enjoy listening into these impressions of Diwan-e-Ghalib with me. Well, I think that's all I have. So let me sign off for today, and I look forward to connecting with you again in the next episode with the first ghazal from Diwan-e-Ghalib, Naqsh Faryadi hai kiski shaukiye tehrika. And let the mental gymnastics begin. Yes, that first share is a complex one. So I look forward to sharing my impressions on that. Till then, everybody, love and light. Thanks for watching.